Humans affect regional and global environments through agriculture, development, and industry in ways that have an impact on the quality of the Earth's natural resources like soil, water, and the atmosphere. What type of human activities can affect the biosphere? We have to think as the Earth as like a big island. Everything living here, including us, have to share the resources, and these resources are limited. We have to protect the resources that we have now, and we have to understand how we affect our biosphere. Since we depend on the ecosystem for resources, we must be aware that human activities can change the local and global environments. Among human activities that affect the biosphere include hunting and gathering, agriculture. With agriculture, we have a dependable supply of food, enabled farmers to double world food production over the last 50 years. We have monoculture, the practice of clearing large areas of land to plant a single highly productive crop like soybeans or corn. It enables sowing, tending, and harvesting of crops using machines, providing food for nearly 7 billion people. But this impacts the natural resources like water and fertile soil, plus getting rid of natural habitats. Urban development, the growth of cities. Again, you're getting rid of natural habitats. And industrial growth, industries coming in, getting rid of natural habitats. We have renewable and non-renewable resources on our planet. Renewable resources are the ones that can be regenerated, like water. It's not unlimited, but it's renewable. It gets like the water cycle. So any of those cycles, the water cycle, the nitrogen cycle, the carbon cycle, oxygen is a renewable resource. But like with water, if we pollute it, we then have to find a way to get rid of those pollutants because we can't make more water. Soil is also considered a renewable resource. We have non-renewable resources, resources which cannot be replenished, like fossil fuels, coal, oil, and natural gas. Sustainable development provides for human needs while preserving the ecosystems that produce natural resources. Human activity affect the quality and supply of renewable resources like lands, forests, fisheries, air, and fresh water. We need to make sure that we protect these things. If managed properly, soil is a renewable resource, but we can damage it permanently. The wearing away of the surface soil by wind and water, because we cut down trees that would prevent that. This can then lead to desertification, an area turning into a desert-like area. That's what happened in the Great Plains in the 1930s. Roughly 40% of the Earth's land is considered at risk for desertification. It's caused by over-farming, overgrazing, and drought. To protect against this, they do contour plowing. They'll leave stems and roots for the previous year from the crops, or in an unused field, they'll plant rye, which then keeps the soil in place. Contour plowing. Forest resources. Forests are very important to us. Wood, oxygen, nutrients, habitats for animals, food. There's things found in the forest that we use for medicine. The forest release water into the atmosphere, so we have rain. It limits soil erosion, protects our freshwater supply. If we cut down the forest, we have deforestation, and it then can lead to severe erosion. Here's just a picture of an area where there's very few people, lots of forest, and not so much 6 years later. We have to have sustainable solutions for forest management. Harvest mature trees sensibly. Plant tree farms just for that. Fishery resources. Areas are being overfished, and there are species, their numbers are becoming very low. Sustainable solutions for fisheries. The U.S. National Marine Fisheries Service uses data on fish populations to create certain guidelines. Aquaculture, they'll raise fish just for human consumption, so you don't go out and overfish an area. And if you have ever fished, there are limits to how many fish you can catch in certain areas. Our air, we have to protect the air we breathe. It affects our health. People can get cancers. People have asthma. If we don't, we have smog. A smog is a mixture of chemicals that occurs as a gray-brown haze in the atmosphere, and it can affect your lungs. People with asthma, they can have asthma attacks. Pollutant, it's a harmful material that can enter the biosphere. There's air pollution, there's water pollution. Many combustion processes, like burning of our fossil fuels, releases nitrogen and sulfur into the atmosphere. Then as it gets in the atmosphere, it mixes with the moisture, mixes with the water, and produces nitric and sulfuric acids, which falls to the earth as acid rain. You should know that our weather moves from west to east across the United States, so the eastern United States has more effect with acid rain than the western United States, because as the weather moves across, it's picking up the nitrogen and sulfur and produces acid rain by the time it gets to the eastern United States. And the northeastern United States, about 20 years ago, saw devastation from acid rain. They had a lot of their coniferous trees turning brown because of acid rain. Americans use billions of liters of fresh water every day. Water is renewable, but again, not unlimited. We have to protect our water from water pollution. And many animals living in water that's polluted are being affected every day. We need to protect natural systems like the water cycle. Wetlands and forests help do this. Water treatment facilities, drip irrigation. Biodiversity. The many different species living in an area. Variety in the biosphere gives us more than just interesting things to look at. Human society takes place in local and global food webs and nutrient cycles. For that reason, we have to protect the biodiversity of the organisms living here. Biodiversity, the sum total of the genetically based variety of all organs living in the biosphere. There's ecosystem diversity, the variety of different habitats. Species diversity, the variety of different species. There's genetic diversity, the different genes in a population. So diversity means differences. Biodiversity, the differences in the amount of living things in the area. Biodiversity is one of Earth's greatest natural resources. Species of many kinds have provided us with food, products, and medicine. We are a threat to biodiversity. We alter habitats. We change the habitat that they live in. We hunt species to extinction. We introduce these toxic chemicals which kill the animals, get into their water system, get into their food. We have introduced foreign species which don't belong here. They don't have natural predators and are taking over. And because of all this, we now have endangered species, species whose population is declining and is in danger of becoming extinct. We also alter habitats. We can destroy them. The habitat fragmentation. We split a habitat. So they maybe cannot, they may have a certain area they go to mate. Now they can't get there because their habitat has been split. Today, endangered and threatened species are protected by laws, but a lot of times it can be hard to enforce. There are many forms of pollution out there which threaten biodiversity. One of the most serious problems occurs when toxins start to accumulate in an organism. So you have the air pollution, the water pollution. The smaller plants, animals take this in. Then the medium-sized animals eat the small. The big animals eat the medium. And these toxins build up in their tissue. That's known as biomagnification. I talked about DDT once before. DDT was building up in the plankton, then in the fish, and then in these large birds, the hawks, the falcons, the eagles. They would lay their eggs. Their eggshells would be very thin because of that DDT. They would sit on their eggs to incubate. The eggs would be crushed. No new birds the next season. So the numbers of hawks, falcons, and eagles declined dramatically. Most of them were on the endangered species list. Again, that's called biological magnification, the concentration of a harmful substance building up from trophic level to trophic level. Introduced species, it's introducing a species to an area that is not native to that area. Introduced species can become invasive species because a lot of times they do not have any natural predators or natural disease to keep their population number in check. Zebra mussel is an introduced species into the Mississippi. It's taking over food, shelter for the native animals in the Mississippi. The leafy spurge will take over a whole area. Mile a minute, this plant grows extremely fast and can take over a forest and take over and weed out all native species of plants. The purple loosestrife does the same thing in prairies and grasslands. It weeds out all the native grasses. Why do invasive species reproduce rapidly and quickly? Their new habitat lacks the predators and parasites that control their populations back where they originally came from. The wise management of natural resources, including the preservation of habitats and wildlife. We need to preserve what we have. There's strategies for conservation. There are challenges with conservation. Protecting resources for the future can require people to change the way they earn their living, and people don't want to change. What are two types of global change of concern for biologists? One, ozone depletion. The ozone layer is part of the atmosphere that contains a relatively high concentration of ozone gas. This layer absorbs a good deal of harmful UV rays. That's what this layer does. It's absorbing UV rays and protecting us. UV rays have nothing to do with heating up the planet. The ozone depletion has nothing to do with the greenhouse effect or global warming. That dark blue area is where the hole in the ozone is. It should not be dark blue. It should be kind of a lighter blue color. Overexposure to UV rays causes sunburn, skin cancer, damages to eye, and decreased resistance to diseases. Satellite images in the 1970s first showed the hole in the ozone over Antarctica. Evidence also showed that chlorofluorocarbons cause the hole in the ozone. Chlorofluorocarbons are not used in the United States anymore. Chlorofluorocarbon numbers are going down. The hole is getting smaller. Global climate change. All life on Earth depends on climate conditions such as temperature and rainfall. Since the late 19th century, average atmospheric temperatures on Earth has risen 0.6 degrees Celsius. Since 1980, average temperatures have risen 0.2 and 0.3 degrees Celsius. The 90s were the warmest decade on record. 1998 was the warmest year since record keeping began. Global warming, the increase in the average temperature of the biosphere. Global warming is caused by the greenhouse effect. It is believed that current warming is related to human activities that are adding CO2, carbon dioxide, and other greenhouse gases to the atmosphere. The burning of fossil fuels, combined with cutting and burning of forests worldwide, is adding CO2 to the atmosphere faster than the carbon cycle removes it. As a result, the atmosphere's natural greenhouse effect is intensified, causing the atmosphere to retain more heat. The CO2 gets trapped. That traps as the sun puts heat into the planet. The heat cannot get out. Computer models based on the trends seen in the data suggest that average global surface temperatures will increase by 1 to 2 degrees Celsius by 2050.